All right, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he's not taking any chances at the start of this week's impeachment trial. McConnell reportedly close to finalizing what we were talking about earlier. That's called a kill switch. You're going to hear a lot about that, a rule that would allow President Trump's team to dismiss the articles in the event Democrats try to drag out the trial for weeks.
Senators on both sides have been fighting for weeks over whether or not to call witnesses and who those witnesses should be. Joining us now is Newsmax insider Tom Borelli. He's also a contributor at America's Voice News. Tom, calling witnesses has been one of the most contentious issues in the process. Do you think we will see any witnesses? And if so, who do you think they would be?
Well, that's a great question, and good morning. Great to be here. Yeah, I think the whole fight over witnesses is really a political battle and actually a public relations battle. I think what the Democrats want to do is they're trying to really hurt the Republicans who are running in this year's election. For example, Mr. Gardner from Colorado, for example. So what we don't know, what most people don't realize is Democrats have been running ads, or anti-Trump groups have been running ads against these senators, claiming that if McConnell doesn't allow witnesses, this whole Senate trial is unfair. And what they want to do is use this unfairness argument to try to hurt Republicans' reelection efforts for the Senate. But in my opinion, I don't think that's going to work. The Democrats, let's face it, talk about fairness. Look what they did in the House of Representatives. They didn't even allow President Trump to mount a defense in the House. So Democrats all about removing the president since day one. Impeachment is their last gasp effort to try to really gain some sort of political advantage. But the poll you mentioned earlier in the show really represents the fact that most Americans, 51%, I believe, do not want to see President Trump removed from office.
Tom, you kind of hit it on the head. I was going to ask you about that term fairness, and then we see how the impeachment proceedings were handled in the House. Republicans, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't allowed to have their own witnesses there. Then we hear a cry from the left side of the aisle, fairness. And it's I think, something that the American people are seeing. Moving on to my next point here, let's talk about where the impeachment proceedings are going to go now. We're expected to hear from Mitch McConnell about the strategy that could play out and this kill switch, if you will. What do you think we're going to see as far as a strategy in the Senate?
Well, I think Leader McConnell is being very smart by advancing this idea of a kill switch, because we know the Democrats are really going to try to carry this on as much as they can to really try to make a big circus out of this impeachment trial. Because let's face it, they don't have anything else. The House Democrats have been running the House of Representatives, and they have very little to show for it other than trying to get rid of President Trump. So their political agenda is try to really fill the airwaves, take all the oxygen out of President Trump's accomplishments, and just keep all focus on the impeachment. So I think McConnell has, being the leader, and the Republicans obviously have the majority in the Senate, they can now really regulate what's happening. And I think the Democrats really have to be careful, because if they want witnesses, bring them on. Let's bring on Hunter Biden, and let's find out about real corruption in Ukraine.
It would be interesting to hear. Tom, if you could predict what the trial might look like, how long, specifically hours in a day, how many weeks could this go on? What would you guess?
Well, I guess Monday morning I'll try my crystal ball. I'm thinking maybe 3 weeks. I think what we'll likely see, and I say likely, I think the Democrats will have their opportunity to make their case. The Republican defenders of President Trump, his team, his impeachment team, will then present their case, and then the Senate will vote. I think that's probably the cleanest and shortest process. So remember, Democrats, by Pelosi delaying this, she's actually really trying to interfere with the Democrat primary. Because remember, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, they're stuck in the Senate. They're not in Iowa, where they rather be campaigning, and there's 2 caucuses and a primary in February. So those Democrats want to get out of Dodge. They want to get out of the swamp.
When you look into impeachment, it can really be a gray area here. In fact, really the only thing that lawmakers have to go on here is the Constitution, and it's important to follow that as they have taken an oath. So I want to point this out: bribery, treason, other high crimes, misdemeanors here. Is this going to be a part of Alan Dershowitz's opening arguments? How does he handle his opening argument? What do you predict?
Well, I think Mr. Dershowitz has already been on air really talking about there really haven't been the charges don't include any crimes, right? Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Those are not crimes. That shows you just how weak the Democrat case really is. Remember, we had first quid pro quo, then it was bribery, then it was extortion. One of those was focus grouped by the Democrats for an argument, but it doesn't really stand any legal ground. Again, this is a public relations battle, and President Trump was very smart to have a team, including people like Mr. Dershowitz, who happens to be very good on TV and can explain it to the American people.
Interesting to point out, too, Inauguration Day for the next president, or President Trump, would be a year, 365 days from today, 2021. So anyways, good to have you on. Tom Borelli, Newsmax Insider, thanks so much.